Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining. Just popping on for a quick stream. We're going to do the art review of this month's challenge. So, if you're not familiar, every month on the Discord, we've got a challenge that we put up, and everybody can submit an image or a video or some art or whatever they make that meets the goals of that challenge. And yeah, and I'll highlight the people that did that each month. If we get lots of submissions, then we'll pick the best. But at the moment, we just have a few, so we can just talk about those. So yeah, so I'm just going to review these, talk through it, and then maybe if we've got some time, I'll jump in and maybe do some blendering. So if you're keen to stick around for a tutorial, let's do it. All right, let me pull this stuff up. I'll hide these guys. Now, if you don't know the Discord, you can join it. The link is in the description below on YouTube, and it's in the About section on Twitch. So if you're on Twitch, hello, our one Twitch viewer. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. All right, so let's take a look at some cool stuff. So we had a couple of great submissions. Last month we had White Rooster Productions, and we had Eve put in some really cool stuff. So I wanted to show that off. So first off, let's have a look at White Rooster's work. So the theme this month was Love, Death, and Robots. So we were taking inspiration from the Netflix series, and the idea was you to take that series and really just you could come up with your own idea that was just based on it. You could try and imitate something that you saw in the trailer or in the series itself. It was really pretty open. So, anyways. White Rooster put this one in. This was the image that he took inspiration from the series. So still from one of the shorts. Really cool image, like very striking. You can see there's a lot of really neat stuff going on. Anyways, he used Blender and duplicated it and came up with his version. I think it turned out really, really awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down and we'll kind of do a side-by-side comparison. I'll talk about what's working and what he could do to improve and to keep pushing his skills. So let's, I'm actually going to see if I can pull up a side-by-side here. I've downloaded it. There we go. Pop this one. Actually, we'll do it. We'll go up and we'll bring this one. No, I don't want to do that. I'm going to pull this here, pull that there. Bam. Or, oh, I can't do it that way. I'll have to do it manually. Trying to be fancy, trying to use Windows in a fancy way. Not working for me. All right, here we go. That works pretty good. Get you guys back up. All right, so let's have a chat. Hey, White Rooster, welcome. Oh, wait, hang on. I almost forgot. Rooster sent me some official swag in the mail. Got my do my real White Rooster hat there. It's his logo. So I'll wear this when we do the review for his stuff. There we go. Should wear a ball cap all the time. It's so weird to wear one of these. No one wears these in Australia. So people see this and are like, American. All right, so here we go. Let's talk about his stuff. Now, we've got a lot of things going on. Now, he's done a really good job of imitating the colors. You can see the colors are really well matched. Also the atmosphere. He's included some atmosphere, which is a really key thing in any kind of realism. So this image here, you can see the density of that atmosphere kind of grows as it goes back. So you get this like white haze. Now, one thing that's going on with this image a little stronger than what White Rooster's done is that you can see here the white light that's being caught by that haze, which really brightens up, creates a strong gradient. The background here in his, you can see it's pretty uniform in its tone. So like if you think about it as a grayscale image, the tone here is pretty even from this side to this side in the background. It does get a bit dark over here, which is good. It's helping a little bit. But you notice a difference. In this one, it's like almost white. right here, and it just has this fade off as it goes over to this thing. So there's two things that accomplishes. One is it creates a really nice contrast in the background, which allows you to have like this variety, which kind of breaks the scene up more. But the other thing is it really helps this section pop. I don't know if you can tell, but you start to lose the spikes amongst the rocks. Whereas here, that atmosphere is really serving to break up those two things. It creates more separation from the background, and it helps to highlight the foreground objects. Really, really cool. So, so that's one thing that you can think about when you're making your own work, is think about how you can separate your background from your midground and your foreground by using that lightness. Look at the difference between how bright this section is, how dark these spikes are in the midground, and the way these spikes are getting a rim light. You can see that rim light is a really strong light just off to the side that's hitting these guys and creating that really bright ping off the side. That also helps separate them. But then also look, this foreground object is so dark. Like these objects here are like almost black, and they really do help to create those layers of separation. So that's one thing that could be improved upon. The materials are really nice. It's done a good job of kind of creating a similar feel. It hasn't done an exact copy, but that's okay. That's not the goal. But there's some really cool stuff here. You can see he's got this alpha channel thing happening where he's used a material to kind of cut away the exterior of this to reveal this kind of glowing interior, which is a pretty cool result. I like the way that's turned out. I like that there's a difference in the brightness of these guys, that the ones off to the side are brighter, the center one's less bright. That's actually I like that variety. Now, you could argue that it might be better to have the center one be brighter so it draws the eye more, but I think that the brightness of these guys is not so much conflicting with the composition as much as having the uniform tone in the background. I think the separation of the background would have helped create more of that flow for the composition. Another nice detail that's not present here, but is present here, you may notice, is the motion blur on these guys. Now, when you're just doing a still image, sometimes motion blur is a bit hard to achieve. But if I'm doing a still and I want to get a little bit of motion blur, like we've got on these guys, because that can help make the image look more dynamic. Now, to be fair, this isn't a still image. This is this is an animated image that's taken from a production that would have had hundreds of people working on it. So I think this is pretty darn good. But in order to get that kind of motion blur in a still image, just take your ships, animate them moving, just create a little bit of motion on those keyframes. Like actually just, even if you're just doing a still, put some keyframes on them so they are moving forward, and then you can render that with motion blur, and you get that little bit of definition, and that can help separate things as well, which is really nice. So yeah, then other than that, if we were to talk about the so one of the things about this, I mean, to be honest, it's kind of, I'm just thinking like the complexity of these objects and the sculpted nature of them, right? So they've got a lot of dense geometry, right, inside. This is quite a sculpted object. It's got a lot of depth to it. You can see that these things are quite thick. There's all this channels within it. There's a lot of internal structure. It's a very different result than using like an alpha channel to cut away. And sometimes when you just have like an alpha channel material, you can get this effect where it looks there, like the crust of it, the outside of it just looks very thin, because you can just see that it's a single layer polygon thing. It's not like a thick, doesn't have depth to it. And that can sometimes take away from the effect, but we're only really noticing that because we're looking at these two in comparison, which I think is not entirely fair. It's probably best just to judge this image on its own merit. So the main criticism of this image for me is that background is not having a darker background to separate from the midground, maybe having a bit more contrast in these foreground objects so that they were darker. I'd pull those down and I'd try and create some kind of, maybe thicken up the atmosphere a little bit and get more of a bright ping, and then have like a light off to the side that's creating that rim light. One thing that's also really important, you can see he's got a little bit of that here on these bits. But if you take the angle of the light, like if you're using a sun lamp, for example, and you drag it all the way down to 0, it's going to really give you a sharp ping. But the larger the angle, the more that light will wrap. So in this case, look, what I'd do is I would angle a light so it was really hitting the sides of this object. I'd make sure this object's material has enough specular in the material settings that's really going to catch that light. And I would set it way off to the side and yeah, make sure the angle is really small and just smash that right across. And if I have enough atmosphere in my scene, so using the volume scatter node in the world shader, then I'm going to get this white kind of glow off to the side, especially if you bring the density of that volume right down, and then like take your anisotropy down to like negative 0.99 or something like that. To really focus the light in that area, which would be really, really cool. But yeah, overall, I think it's really great. I think the ships are great. And the layout is nice. Like you've got a different layout to this, but your composition still works. You've got a balanced composition in the way things are laid out, and that's really important. The way it's kind of drawing the eye. I think it looks really good. So I think you've done a good job of really taking this as inspiration and running with it. Others really nice, just kind of side notes. The rock texture I think is fantastic. That's a great rock texture. I don't know if you're getting that straight from like an image texture that you're using as displacement or something, but it just looks so real. It's really good. And yeah, and I do like the way these guys are glowing. I think that's really cool. So anyways, great work. Excellent job. I think you're growing tremendously in your art skills. Like, it's amazing. White Rooster just started like fairly recently in doing Blender stuff. So, hats off to you, mate. That's really cool. He's also submitted a second one. So let's have a look at the second one that White Rooster put in. And let's check it out here. So this one's an animation. So we're going to watch this. Actually, let me make sure you can hear the audio. Turn this back on. Jump back to the start. I love the logo. Always make. Oh, sorry, I stopped it too early. Go subscribe. All right, so let's talk about this. First off, I just realized I never took the tag off. It's pretty funny. All right, there's a lot of great things happening in this shot. First off, the music choice is awesome. Like, it really sets a tone. I think it's really, really strong. In fact, I'll just mute the audio so I can talk over it. So things that I think are working really well with this. First off, the music sets a fantastic tone. The shot pacing is really nice. The speed at which there's a lot of deliberate choices going in here. First off, there's quite a while before we introduce any object in this shot, right? You just get a sense of the atmosphere, the environment. You get to see the snow, and it has room to breathe. That's really important in shots. It's nice, especially at the beginning of something, to give stuff room to breathe, allow your scene to have a bit of momentum and get set up. Then he introduces the character. It comes in from the bottom. It's a really nice composition, like this shooting straight through, not exactly diagonal through the center of the frame, but just at the bottom bit. It's really nice. Like, that's a good choice there. Again, the lighting here is really good. You can see like there's just a lot of really nice things. This flare that's happening, I'm not sure how you pulled that off. If you got that from an external compositor or something, it just looks really good. It's just a nice, subtle detail, and it's not too strong. Like, it's graded so that it's not too intense, but it's just a great moment at the end of that shot. Then it's cool because we introduce a focal point. We have an objective. There's a story now that's being told, right? We're going somewhere. That's really awesome. Like, that was a really good deliberate choice to put something in here that our character is going to. It just helps add just that little bit of extra to the whole experience of the scene. And we fly off, and then I really like this shot. It's this shot combined with the music. I think it just has such a good tone. It's the quiver of this light flare, this ping, right? The rotation of the ship and the rotation of the camera. It's like all that stuff together, because you're getting this nice motion in the background as we're moving, we're pushing in. It's just really, really strong. And then of course the logo. Can't argue with the logo. So now let's talk about some things to improve. So I'll get to a shot here. One of the things that stands out to me is the snow at the moment, right, has fairly harsh difference between the bright and the dark sides, which You could probably push the realism a little bit further in the material for the snow by adding just a touch of subsurface scattering. That would allow the light to kind of pass through, and it also soften the edges between these high contrast moments where we've got the dark and the light side by side. It kind of blends through those a little bit, and that can help differentiate the snow from, say, for example, the rock, which won't have that kind of subsurface scattering. Um, this shot here, I felt the lack of, there is motion blur on this, but I felt like there was a lack of motion. Actually, it might be just be depth of field. I really wanted to see some motion blur. I could feel that not there. Now that's a stylistic choice, so it's not really a criticism. It's just if I was doing it, that's how I would do it. But some of the things that break down for me in this shot are I can really see here that this texture on the mountain is just a bump, right? Just a bump map on the surface of this object. And in order to get around stuff like that, when you've got shots like this, these objects here, these like large sections, right, of bump, they really feel like they should have some geometric depth to them. So some actual geometry kind of raised up. So I think what I would have done is like come in here if I had the time, is to come in and sculpt out these darker rock sections so they were physical geometry that actually kind of raised up out of the surface of this. It's okay to have snow end up being so smooth along here. Like that's an okay effect to have. But for these sections where there is no snow, it'd be good to have some actual geometry poking up. I think would really help kind of elevate the shot a little more. The clouds here in the distance are really nice. Like this is a really good effect here. The separation you've got in this valley section and this cloud up here, it's really, really good. This as well, so the light beam, it's quite sharp right on the edges. That's something I maybe would have tweaked a bit more, put a bit more wrap around that so it wasn't so sharp. It doesn't feel so much like a solid object because it's definitely communicating as it's a light beam, but that's nitpicking. That's really not much of a criticism, to be honest. The other thing might be, you could work on improving with this trail. So we've got the, let me go back a little bit so we can see the trail. The fact that, so it's one of those things, it's a little hard to put my finger on it, but it's what I'm feeling when I look at this is it feels to me like a geometric object, right? And the reason for that is it stays so sharp. See this sharp. It's not fully sharp. There's a bit of a fade to it, but the edges here. Having smoke like this, like if the trail really was this long right behind it, it would start to dissipate. And so that would require, either using a smoke simulation or some other kind of fancy trick to kind of, fake it. What I would probably do to avoid having to do all that would be to fade the trail a lot sooner. And have some more noise kind of break up this edge, which would mean having these edges defined by the material. So actually using like gradient nodes or something to kind of create this definition around the edge, have a larger plane of some kind that this is on, or a cylinder object or something that's bigger than the actual texture. And I would have these edges defined by the material so that I could also have the material kind of expand as it fades off or something like that. It'd be pretty tricky to pull something like that off, but I would do that so it has a little bit of a drift to it before fading off completely. Otherwise, I would have gone ahead and invested the time into doing some kind of smoke sim that dissipates. So the other thing is you can see that it's traveling with the ship, which, in some ways would happen because it's got momentum, but it's being fired at the back of the ship. So it should be opposite to the ship's momentum. So another kind of simpler way that might have actually, maybe achieved the same, given it a bit more realism, would be to animate the noise of this smoke going backwards away from the ship as it travels. But composition's strong. Again, storytelling strong. You can see there's a bit of drift on it at the end there, like the smoke does have this rise to it, which does help kind of sell that idea. But you can still see the sharpness of these edges. So you are doing what I'm suggesting. Like you can see you faded it off here. This is really nice. I actually like the way the lensing on this works. So the depth of field, I think, it really is quite strong. It's got mega alien vibes. It's really good. And the texture is really good on this. Like I love all the grunge and stuff. It's quite intentional. It's really, really nice. I honestly don't really have any criticism of this shot. I think it's just really strong. So fantastic work. I hope you found that helpful. Hope you learned a few things out of that, and you're able to pick some things. Everybody watching, hope you're learning too, able to pick up stuff for your own work. Very nice, very nice job. All right, let's take a look at Eve's submission. Just close that. Eve submitted a video as well. Pretty awesome. Like you guys did videos, like full on animations. That's really that's saying something. All right, my head's getting itchy. All right, here we go. You ready? I'll put my audio back on. Hey, welcome, White Rooster. Glad you enjoyed it. All right, here we go. Turn up the audio. Got this on. All right, so this is Eve's submission. Now, I'll precursor. Eve did say when he submitted this that it wasn't finished. He wanted to do more to this, and he's pushed his computer to the absolute limit. So his GPU is glitching out. So you'll see all these glitches. That's from the render from the GPU. But we'll talk about the stuff. We'll view this as a work in progress. There we go. Let's go back. All right, I'm gonna turn down the volume. So great job. Really cool stuff going on here. Let's talk through it. Now, you can see the glitches that were going on from the GPU. That happens when you push too much through your processor, through your GPU. Sometimes it can happen from other reasons as well, like having like emission stuff turned up too high. So anyways, so we got some cool stuff here. Lots of Halo vibes going on. The music choice, I loved it. Like I just thought it was great. Like right off the bat, going for this piece is really cool. And I like the idea too of like sitting at the shop, just these two characters. We've got all this stuff kind of looming in the background. It feels to me like some kind of like modern art exhibition piece, like where it's just got this like really methodical pace to it. The flower idea and the petals and stuff, and then the character models are amazing. Just really cool stuff. One of the things I love about this is what's going on in the background. Now it's really blurry, right? Because it's super depth of field, pushed to the max. But I love how that didn't like keep you from pushing stuff in the background. And one of the things right off the bat is this explosion thing going off the cloud. Like that looks great. I'm gonna mute the audio. The other thing that I really like is this transition effect that you've got on these robots at the back. The way they're all fading on is really strong. Like look at that. Like it starts, it's like a forward, it's like it starts in front of them, and they have this like glowy hologram reveal that kind of builds on, and then they solidify. I think that looks really cool. But yeah, again, the pacing, you've got this then a ship that comes in, and you've got this thing, and you're continually thinking about your frame, the way you're filling it. That's really cool. This is such a cool looking thing. And I like the way that you're telling a story in a very non-traditional way. So you're telling a story through the objects in a really slow, methodical way. I think that's really cool. The pedal flashing too is another one of those glitches. This up here, if you ever see this in your own projects as well, this flashing this. So watch this on the side here. See the flashing? That's what's called Z fighting or Z fighting. And what it means is there's usually two polygons that are right on top of each other, and Blender can't work out which ones should be in front. And so every frame, it kind of calculates it differently, and you get this flashiness. So if you ever see that, there's either two things going on. One, it's the the distance field of your camera. So you need to change the render distance. So either push the clipping distance out just a little bit, because if you set the clipping distance in your camera to 0, it's going to do that for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. I think it just has to do with how it calculates depth in the scene based on the camera. So if you have any value set to 0, it's going to mess it up. So you can check that, and then you also make sure there's no polygons right on top of each other. You can see a bit of that up there as well. I like the way you've chosen to frame this, and you've pushed in closer around both of them. I would probably favor the camera over a little bit more to the left, so that she was kind of continually staying in this section and he was in this section. Feels to me like we're kind of waiting to see something else come into the frame, so I would center that a little bit. But I like the idea of what you're doing, how you're gradually pushing in. I think that the one criticism I'd have would be the random motion that you've got using. I'm assuming using like a noise generator on a curve for the model's hand to kind of save time and to kind of just have a little bit of ambient motion on it. I feel like this piece would almost be stronger if the characters were completely motionless, as if this entire thing was just a vignette of still figures, and the camera's the only thing that's really kind of moving. I feel like that almost would be a stronger presentation, because when you've got this kind of subtle movement, it doesn't have any direction to it, but it implies that things are alive and that there is motion in the scene. And because she's so still and his face is so still, there's no animation yet in his face and his eyes or anything like that. Sometimes if you animate one thing, it automatically means that it feels like everything should be animated, and if it's not, it's like, oh, something's missing or it's not quite working. So sometimes you can get around that by not animating anything, right? And then you've got this, it's a different feel, it's a different style, where it's like just these characters in a scene and the camera's the only thing that's moving. So that's one cool way. And if you did something like that, you could still have this subtle motion on the background characters and the ship and stuff. I feel like that would all still work, because I like the kind of slow motion underwater feel that these guys all have. But again, it's all about what you're trying to achieve, and how you do it. I really like the sky that you've got. It's very cool. Those clouds, it looks really really nice. Also, too, this light band thing on her arm. That's so cool. Another thing that's good, as well, is the way you've laid out your assets. You've got this nice composition in terms of creating this set piece. It's a lot of depth in your scene, which is good. And I like this sun a lot, especially the way it kind of gets stronger as the scene progresses. Very cool. Anyways, good work, Eve. Well done. So I hope you guys found that interesting and fun and helpful, and I hope you're interested in joining next month's challenge. So I'll just highlight challenge of the month. It's in the challenge of the month section on the Discord. Sorry, this is a bit tiny. I can try and make this bigger maybe so you can actually see it. I'll just read it to you. So this next one for June, we're doing, let's see, what's the theme? It's space freight. So any ideas you've got around images in terms of how things could be moved through space? It could be as creative or as bizarre as you want. That's this next month. So again, no prizes or anything. It's not really in a competition. We don't pick a winner, but it's more about getting you a chance to focus your skills on something and push yourself. And and we do a bit of a review. So